deal with another topic of insight is great, but you don't need it for change. It'd be awesome. It's liberating. It's empowering. It does a lot of things, but it's not necessary. Instead, just having a plan that is time tested through other people who have wisdom or direction, or if they're a therapist or whatever you want to call them, your pastor, your priest, your best friend, your mom, whoever it is, allowing them to give you a plan that has been somewhat anecdotally tested. That type of plan will lead to change. Whether or not change does not always equate to growth, or regression is change. It's just not in the right direction. So having a plan is what is needed for growth. Insight would be great, but plan is suitable. It'll get you what you need. All right. With that in mind, when you want to make that change, like I said, you need a plan, and you also need direction with that plan from somebody, and maybe even yourself. And also this willingness to be vulnerable. And I say that because it's an emotional component to the barriers that we come up with when we want to change, is this: we're afraid that we're going to be screwed. Part of it is loss. When we make changes, we feel that we're losing something. Sometimes those routines have emotional connection from to people due to grief or losses, and we honor those patterns because we honor what it represents. So by changing that pattern, we feel like we would be losing a connection. I've known where I've worked with people, and they were doing things knowing it wasn't working, but they didn't want to change it because it was the legacy given to them by their father. So by changing that, you would be, in a sense, losing that connection to their father. And they knew very well that it wasn't a noble thing, but it's kind of what they did in order to deal with the grief. Because when we do grieve, sometimes we pick up patterns from that person as a way of honoring them and feel connected to them. So, I mean, even I've done it. So we pick up characteristics of an individual that we have lost, not just through death, just loss. Grief is not just through death. Grief is also through life changes, job changes, moving, breaking relationships. Those are all loss. Those are all grief. And sometimes we pick up patterns as a way of still honoring and feeling connected, and keeping them still in our lives, in a sense, in a metaphorical sense. So sometimes when we want to make that change, we have to be vulnerable to make that change, because sometimes it has that connection for why we're doing things. All right. I didn't think I was going to get into that, but it does definitely have to do with our conversation